Hey TYT, it's Nomi Const. We have some breaking news. It has been a busy day. Many of you have been following the drama coming from New York State over the last year. It's been going on much longer, but we've been covering it over the last year. New York State should be a democratically controlled state, meaning the assembly, which is controlled by Democrats, the governor, who is a Democrat, and the state senate, which should also be controlled by Democrats. But there have been 8 Democrats who have been conferencing with the Republicans that are members of the Independent Democratic Conference. And then there's one other Democrat, Simcha Felder, who just conferences on his own, not with the Independent Democratic Conference. And that has prevented the Senate from being democratically controlled, as well as the state passing sweeping progressive legislation. Some say that Governor Cuomo uses this to his advantage, that the IDC is partially his creation, and that he gets to pass whatever progressive legislation he would like, and how far that goes by putting it into the budget and doing it on his own terms. So the issue has really, in this climate, in this Trump climate, has blown up quite a bit. There have been protests since January, different indivisible groups, anti-IDC groups, community groups. Our Revolution has been sending out text messages and emails. The 8 Democratic members of the IDC have felt a lot of pressure outside their offices. There's been protests. They've gotten postcards, a lot of negative press. You know, this has been going on for the past 6-7 years now, but it's really not something that is, the press has been dealing with them differently in the face of Trump, just because there are so few Democratic-controlled states at this time. So, there have been conversations about a deal in the past. This is not a new. They've done this a couple of times. It's not their first rodeo. Governor Cuomo just a couple of years ago said that he wanted he was pressuring the IDC to rejoin based on a deal. But last night, in this climate, it's a little bit different. Last night, yesterday, there was a letter that was sent out by the New York State Democratic Party. The chair, who is a mayor from Buffalo, New York, named Byron Brown, essentially the Democratic Party in New York State is Governor Cuomo's party. So they sent this letter to Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who is the Democratic leader of the Senate, and Jeff Klein, who's the leader of the IDC, calling for them to work together in a coalition government, meaning be co-leaders. Now, this is something that the Democrats, the mainstream Democrats, the mainline Democrats have said they were willing to do in the past. And the conversation, the details of the deal were being discussed on Twitter into last night. And one of those details is that, and I'm just reading through the letter again right now, the suggested deal would involve both the IDC and the mainline Democrats work together, and that would give them 32 Democrats in the 63-seat chamber, and they would be working as co-leaders. They would have Stewart-Cousins and Klein would work together in figuring out who their deputies are. Now, there's another, the deputy leader, Senator Michael Gianaris, who we've interviewed in the past. He has been known to have, a tough relationship with Jeff Klein. Some say, although this really does predate this relationship, some say that Senator Jeff Klein stays in the IDC because he wanted to be leader of the mainline Democrats, and that he has a really there's a lot of friction between Senator Gianaris and Jeff Klein, and also Senator Gianaris and Governor Cuomo. So some think that this is a way of boxing out Senator Gianaris, but the mainline Democrats have said that his role would stay as like political director essentially, and that he'd still be doing the same things just without the title and not the big office, because you get all these perks when you're in leadership. So that was one of the clauses of this agreement. Now, it's just interesting to me because you'd think that the IDC, if they got to maintain their leadership, they would say yes to this deal. But just a couple of hours ago, Senator Jeff Klein, it was reported that he had met with the Republican leader, spoken to the Republican leader, Flanagan, about this deal, and it looked like that the deal is not going to be moving forward. That Jeff Klein called it a political deal. Now, just editorializing here, political deal. What is it? Humanitarian deal? Like, what's the alternative? You're in politics. This is a political position. You were elected. So, I mean, ultimately, I think the big questions out of this are, number one, is this real? Is this different this time because if this deal is not cut, all of these IDC members will be challenged. All the mainline Democrats have said that they're going to back the primary challengers against the IDC. And many of these IDC members are in incredibly vulnerable districts, barely won, the first time around. And now, with this letter coming from the governor, without having the governor backing them to protect them, they're kind of on their own, meaning the Democratic Party would not be backing them. And there's a possibility that the Democratic Party, which has not supported the Senate Dems in the past in campaigning, that they could possibly do so this time around. Now, my thoughts are, Governor Cuomo has been feeling the pressure. He's planning on running for president, it seems. He's running for re-election next year, probably doesn't want a primary challenger, doesn't need to feel more pushback from the left as he's trying to, essentially, I call it Cuomo washing. He's trying to make the appearance that he's more progressive when he's, been basically the puppet master of the IDC for the past few years. So for him to distance himself from the IDC, it raises two questions. Is that real? Is he abandoning them? Is he going to completely, for his own political reasons, is he alienating the IDC and no longer supportive of them? Or is this just a game? Is this Governor Cuomo on the surface trying to appear to distance himself from the IDC, but really knowing that Jeff Klein's not going to support the deal, allowing them to continue to exist in their own universe? Now, the other side of this is if these IDC members are all primaried, and Governor Cuomo does have a primary challenger, I think the question is whether or not this helps or hurts Cuomo. Does mobilizing all of these progressives to challenge the IDC members in these campaigns, does that hurt Cuomo if he has a potential primary challenger? Or does it help him, meaning that resources are going to be stretched because it costs money to run for office? These are the ultimate questions. These are the political questions at hand. But, we're watching very closely. I'd be curious to see what other IDC members are thinking at this point. These are IDC members who are being protested, who are feeling the pressure in their districts. Jeff Klein, at this point, it seems very clear that it's not just about the perks anymore. That's probably how he keeps his members in the conference, is through the perks, the Lulus. There's been some financial scandals as well with these Lulus, the money that they receive. This always has seemed to be about Jeff Klein's ego and wanting to be the leader of the Democratic Conference. Now, Andre Stewart-Cousins, who would be the leader, not Flanagan, the Republican, if the IDC didn't exist, you would have the first African-American woman leading a Democratic, leading the Senate, the state Senate. Now, that's historic, that's amazing, but Jeff Klein wanted to lead the Senate. So they could be co-leaders. That's what they're proposing. Now, the Senate Democrats are willing to sign off on this deal. So at this point, if it's denied, it's really just about the IDC. And I don't think that's good for them because it seems very clear from the Democrats that they're willing to challenge all these IDC members. Stay tuned. I'll keep reporting as this goes on. It's just been a very dramatic day. Not just the IDC. There's a lot of news happening. This period right after Thanksgiving, moving into the holidays, is always an interesting period because there's a lot of news and there's a lot of politics before people go on break. So I'm Nomi Konst. I will keep you updated. Thank you so much. Talk soon.